All right, we are live. Good morning, good afternoon for those of you watching this after the fact. Today is our last live for Virtual Fish Fest. So you probably, if you're watching this, you missed out on being able to buy some tackle in the loft. You can still shop online till midnight Sunday night and get entered to win into our raffle we'll be doing Monday. So thanks so much. We've had a blast, and we're looking forward to talking about jigs here. So stick with us. We'll let the crowd build. All right. How are you doing this morning?
Good. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing all right. So we'll let some folks jump in here, guys. As you are jumping in, as always, let me know how the audio is, because I don't want to share all of the jig secrets and you can't hear what we're talking about, because I know that's what we're getting ready to do, right?
That's right.
All the juice.
I'll probably learn something too, though, you know.
Hey, I can genuinely say every time we do these, I learn something.
That's right. You can't quit learning in fishing.
Well, I had to start somewhere because I don't know all that much myself. So, all right. Sound is good. Thank you, David. Let me pull this up. So we'll let a few more folks jump in here. Where are you off to after here?
I'm actually headed to Kansas to guide some deer hunts.
Oh, all right. Thumbs up for the deer hunting.
So
there's a lot of mixed emotions right now. Of course, after the way Neely seems to be performing, I'm sure that's making it a little easier for some folks to choose go sit in the stand.
And I just got done with Cherokee, and that was a epic grinder.
Oh yeah, this is So you've been, I mean, you get out and get around different places. So would you say fishing's kind of been rough just in general this year?
It's tough. Like, I mean, just being on Cherokee, I had like 2.5 days of practice and then 2 days of the tournament. And it's tough to even get a bite.
All right.
Like when you get a bite, you're excited. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, good morning, guys. Michael here from Bucks Island once again with a live for Virtual Fish Fest. And as always, if you stop in here, you might get put to work. So we're sitting here with Hunter Bland, Yamaha Skeeter Pro, and so that I don't goon it up. What's your full-time gig that you do with Skeeter?
So I'm Skeeter, Yamaha's national boating safety advocate.
Okay.
So I get to travel all over the country speaking on boating safety, allowing boaters to just be more aware of, certain unexpected situations, and just ultimately encouraging everybody to live life to the fullest and enjoy it on the water. So when I'm not doing that, I get to fish some opens. So ultimately it's a lot of fun.
Okay. So you've been fishing most opens around here this year?
Yeah, I'm fishing the Easterns. I didn't get to fish the Neely one, but I just wrapped up at Cherokee yesterday. All
right. Well, thank you so much for stopping in, being willing to do this. So just so you guys know, Hunter, he showed up. We're going to be selling his 2020 Skeeter FXR 20, right?
Yes, sir.
Beautiful blue, and what was the other color in there?
Silver and Nassau blue.
Yes. Beautiful boat. We just got it in, went through trade check. How many hours do you have on that thing?
33.
33. Sounds like you need to spend more time on the water, my friend. So that is going to be a cream puff boat. Humminbird, what was it, 2 12s on it?
3 Helix 12s, Mega 360, all one boat networks. All
right. So that boat you'll be seeing on the internet here soon. That sounds like a freaking awesome boat. Did you enjoy that new FXR?
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. I love the FX.
Yes.
And I didn't think they could improve on the FX, and then they crushed it with the FXR.
Yeah, it's hard for me to say that, and I guess it's hard for anybody to really believe the guys with, Skeeter logos and stuff to really, but I mean, genuinely, they did a lot of good things.
Absolutely.
A lot of good things on that boat. So we are excited. We just wish we could get more boats in. But hey, it's 2020, so you roll with the punches. I know they're working hard over at Skeeter to crank boats out. Yamaha is working to get motors out to everybody.
Absolutely.
So just a shortage across the marine industry. It has been nuts this year. So, guys, here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about jigs today. Hunter's going to share some stuff that so we'll start with some basics. Some of you may know I'm learning a lot myself, newish to fishing. So if nothing else, I'll learn something. We're going to be giving away 5 free tickets at the end of this for our raffle, the last giveaway for that. And you're sweetening the pot on the raffle. So as a safety guy, obviously PFDs, probably a big part of that discussion.
Absolutely.
So we're going to have a Mustang inflatable that you're throwing in.
Yes.
So that's going to be thrown into our big pot that we're going to give away on Monday. So that's awesome. Thanks.
Absolutely.
Thanks so
Glad
much.
I could do it.
And then, as we've done the last couple of days, we got a selection of jigs, jig trailers, and even a spoon over there that will be the old spoon. So I brought my my black and white spoons because this is the spoons I know about. But we'll be giving away a little tackle pack. So we'll be picking a couple winners here at the end. So guys, drop some questions. And if you don't mind sharing this up, I know we're competing with a lot of stuff going on today. Happy Halloween, by the way. But we'll get rolling. Let me swap that over. So what do you want to start with for talking jigs?
Let's start with the old skipping jig.
Okay.
So as everybody's familiar, skipping jig comes into play because obviously you're going to skip it. But the difference is a lot of them, you'll see different manufacturers. This one's a Torgay skipping jig, and Andy Montgomery designed it. And I'm pretty sure if you've ever seen him skip a dock, it's probably a good reason to skip it.
All right.
And I mean, the dude even just came out with a reel
for
skipping docks. I mean, he's pretty dialed in.
So he probably gets asked, what's the one thing if you could only fish one technique?
It's probably going to be a skipping jig. I don't know Andy that real well, but
gotcha.
It's probably going to be that.
Fortunately, nobody has to only fish one technique.
That's a good thing.
All right, so skipping jigs.
But the difference is you'll see the head design. It just allows that bait to skip a little bit better when you do a roll cast, whether it's under dock, skipping laydowns, actual bushes. So a lot of times, I'll trim that skirt a little bit just so it's even. And when you throw a trailer on the back of it, now there's a whole ton of different options on trailers. I grabbed a spicy beaver because I'm from Florida and we like to punch these things a lot. But there's a lot of different soft plastics on the market. Yum even just came out with a new one called a spine crawl. That's a very unique design. I'm throwing that a whole bunch on the back of jigs. And it seems to skip incredibly well. So, you're going to standard rig this Texas style. And, man, one thing with jigs, you got to push that weed guard out of the way. And you're just going to try to center it up through the middle and get it to bury. But when you're going to get that, sometimes I'll trim that jig. Depending on, if we're on a spotted bass fisher or something, I'm going to try to make this a little bit more compact. But, for instance, like me being from Florida, when we're skipping docks a lot of times, even on the St. Johns River and stuff, whether it's in the summertime or some of them will even spawn around those docks, that you can have a little bit bigger profile because we're mimicking those bluegill. So a lot of times just the size of your bait, I like to think a lot of times depends on the application, number one, the species of bass you're targeting, and then also the forage that those bass are targeting as well. So, I mean, this would be an example of something I'm going to skip. Cherokee, I skipped a few docks. I was skipping a jig just like this, like a 5/16 and a 3/8, something along those lines, depending on water depth and fall rate you can tweak. And depending where we're at, a lot of times I tend to up my line size a little bit, go to like 15 or something along those lines.
Good question in there. What line and what size?
Yeah, so I'm 15 to 17. Now there are some jigs we're going to talk about too, like some missile micro jigs and stuff like that. Finesse applications that obviously, if we're going finesse, we potentially might even go to a spinning rod if that's your preference, or a really, really light action bait caster, and we're going small line, like 10 or 12 pound fluorocarbon. Okay. But a lot of this line, like if I'm in, if I'm expecting a big bite or there's a lot of zebra mussels around or something like that, I'm going to go 15 to 17. if you're not getting a lot of bites and you feel, you're around them, we can come down some as well and start getting in that 12. But dock fishing can be risky business. So, 15 is probably standard across the board. I'm a uni knot guy. I love to tie a uni knot. It's just what I have confidence in. There's a ton of different knots you can tie, but being on the water, you loop that thing through and wrap it 3 times, 4 or 5 times,
Gotcha.
wet it, tighten it, and you can ready to go. But a skip and jig, again, it's that head design that really allows you to skip that bait. And then, a lot of times if you're new to skipping jigs, just practice with it. If you got a pool or a pond or anything, just practice getting that bait to lay down, because the quieter you can get that bait to lay down, the farther you can get it back underneath that dock, the better that cast is going to be.
Okay.
So does anybody else have any questions on skipping jigs?
Guys, drop those questions in there. I will ask one. Do you ever cut your trailer down some on that?
I will. Like I said, if we're attacking spotted bass or something like that, I might. Or if I'm not, I feel like my presentation's too big. A lot of times, like if I'm imitating bluegill, I might leave it this big. But depending on like that trailer there, we could run it straight out of the package there and be fine. But if I was going to trim down that spicy beaver a little bit, I would also trim down the skirt as well.
Gotcha.
You just kind of want those, flappers or crawls, whatever you're using, just past it a lot of time is my preference. And that's the cool thing about jig fishing. You could listen to 10, 15 different people and everybody's going to have their own preference. But at the end of the day, as we talk through this, fire off some questions, but also take these things out, try them, throw them, and build some confidence in it and start making your own tweaks. For instance, some guys will, use some dye and dip the tails if it's muddy water and stuff like that as well.
Okay. So guys,
that's a skip and jig.
All right. Guys, drop some comments and questions in there, because that's where we're going to pick a winner, or a couple winners. And as a few folks have learned, the more you comment, the more likely you are to win. Just the way it is.
That's a solid strategy.
Yes. So do me a favor, guys, if you wouldn't mind clicking over and hitting that share button, and letting some folks know. I know it is a busy Saturday morning, and probably a few folks watching some college football,
I would imagine.
So that's all right. We don't want to compete with college football. Let's see. What's your favorite type of fishing when it starts to get colder like this?
Ooh, favorite type of fishing. Right now, the bass fishing has been kind of tricky. But normally a lot of times,
good way to put it.
Yeah, let's be honest, it's the fall.
Yes.
A lot of times I'm used to sitting in the deer stand and not fishing this much, but it's taught me one thing. I probably need to get back out there and fish a little bit more. So, but in terms of favorite type of fishing, it's still bass fishing for me. But honestly, I just got back from Cherokee, but I'm really wanting to learn more of these Coosa River lakes like we got here around Bucks, even like Cherokee, Middle Tennessee areas, and even Tennessee River. Like I'm from Florida, so we're really focused on grass and stuff like that. And in the fall time, when I was at Cherokee, all the baits in the back of pockets and stuff, but all the fish weren't on the bait yet. So just me personally, I want to do more of this smallmouth, spotted bass, largemouth, Middle Tennessee, Coosa River stuff, and learn more about that. So this time of year would be my favorite, just trying to crack that puzzle.
All right. And we're starting off, what kind of colors for the North Georgia lakes?
I don't get too complicated with colors. It depends on water clarity, but a lot of times I'm just going straight green pumpkin. That tends to match the hatch a lot of times. Now, for instance, like when we were on Cherokee, you get crawdads in there. Depending on where you're at in Georgia, there could be some of that, so you could get a little red and brown in there. But if you're going with just a straight green pumpkin with a little bit of brown, you can carry just one jig in your tackle box. There might be other guys who carry 5 or 10, but in my honest opinion, if you just got green pumpkin, you can imitate a bluegill. You can imitate even, we call them specks, but crappie. Right. Depending on that water clarity, green pumpkin for me is a go-to. And if you got really dirty water, black and blue or peanut butter and jelly, green pumpkin, purple, anything like that, just little variations of that. But I don't get too too crazy
How
with that.
passionate are you about matching your trailer to the jig color? You ever mix and match, or are you pretty much stay
That's a good
consistent?
question. I normally stay consistent, but at the same time, I've done some crazy stuff and it's worked. So like I fished Champlain throwing a bladed jig, which we'll talk about. I was throwing a chatterbait, but I was throwing great straight green pumpkin, and I mean it's close, but I was throwing more like a watermelon candy, adding a lot more flash.
Right.
So I mean it's close, yes, but it's not just green pumpkin. We're adding a lot more flash there.
Well, I know when we the fishing report that we put out this morning, Josh Heron from Reaction Innovation, one of the comments he made, he's more spends a lot of time Logan Martin and Neely Henry, but he said right now is probably a good time if you're uncomfortable with the color or the thing you're throwing, that's probably where you need to be because it's just tough. So.
Right. Absolutely.
All right. We got a question about what rod length for skipping baits.
That's a great question. I personally, I'm not a tall guy. I'm only 5'8", and so I tend to go with a 6'6" or a 6'9". 6'9" I like a little bit better, and I'm going medium or medium heavy. But you want a lot of tip in that rod, so you want that rod to load, and you want to be able to skip that bait pretty forgiving. But a short rod is good for me. And you don't want it too stiff, like I said, also because of the hook set. Like when they bite that, you just really – I don't really snatch them, especially out from under a dock. You can crack them, but I like to just try to get pressure and lean into them if you got that right balanced rod. So you could go 6'6", but I'd say 6'9", somewhere in that ballpark, up to 7 foot is my preference.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on. What's the next jig we got up here?
The next one is probably something I should have done a little bit more when I was at Cherokee, and it's something I think that gets overlooked, and I wanted to talk about it a little bit because I think I should put more of them in my tackle box, to be honest. But this is an Ike's micro jig from Missile. It's a really, really tiny finesse jig. So you can there's many trailer options with that. But this is what I was referring to when I'm saying, 10, 8 might be a little sketchy depending on where you're at, but 10-pound line throwing it, around rocks and stuff you might break off some. Okay. But when it's this tough in the fall, and you're trying to imitate crawdads and stuff like that and just forage within rocks and things like that, or you can even drag it offshore. Okay. It's just a really subtle approach when it's this tough in the fall, because I mean it's been very tough with a little bit warmer weather and stuff like that recently, that I think it just entices fish to bite a little bit better because it's more subtle presentation. So this is just basically like a peanut butter and jelly, but you can tell it's a really, really tiny jig. And so this, if I'm going this finesse, you can take like a baby rage bug and put that on the back of it. You can, if you want, you can pull off these flanges in the middle. Some guys like to do that. I do that sometimes if I'm trying to imitate crawdads or anything like that. Okay. But that, when you're rigging that, you're going to rig it the same way as the skipping jig, and you're just going to try to, you want to square it up as best as you can. It's a little bit tougher with a smaller jig like this, but this one I'd probably trim a little bit better. Okay. But at the same time, you can see, we'd probably trim this down a little bit. Okay. But you can see, so that's a micro jig, an Ike's micro jig there. And you can tell the difference. Like if we went from skipping docks to where if we had a lot of pressure, now we're a lot, and sometimes too, shad are, pretty small right now too. You can even get shad imitators in this bed as well. It's just another option in your arsenal when the fishing gets tough during the fall.
Okay. Now, how much action are you looking to try and get out of that?
I'm just going to drag this.
Okay.
And like I said, this is something I personally want to throw a lot more of as well, just because I don't feel like I'm utilizing this technique as much as I should be. And I'm focused on the fall here with that here and now. And this week, you could throw this potentially on a spinning rod, but you could throw this on a 6'9" medium as well. Okay. So you're just not going to snatch it out of their mouth. You're not going to King Kong it.
So Shane asked, how small does it go? What is the
this one? This one's a 3/16. I think they. I'm not 100% sure if they go to a 32nd. I know there's a 3/16, and I know there is an 1/8 as well.
All right.
Yes, that's another good one as well.
Almost like a grub.
Almost like a grub as well. It's just a really subtle finesse, technique that I would encourage you guys to try, because I'm trying to make myself throw that a little bit more as well.
Okay. All right. Well,
any more questions on the micro jig?
Y'all keep them coming, and if we got to go back and backtrack, we'll do that.
Shout them out.
What do we got up next?
The old swim jig.
Uh-oh.
Now you'll get guys. You can learn a lot of information on a swim jig. Again, I'm going to tell you a couple of my little preferences, but being from Florida, we throw this thing a lot, and around here, around Bucks, I know the Coosa River, a swim jig comes into play big time with that bank grass you have and lay.
We got a few swim jig fans around here.
I'd say so. And, I think that's where the Alabama Shake was invented, wasn't it? Throwing a swim jig?
That'd be a Dano question.
Yeah,
so
I think it was.
It may be. Okay. Well, they're definitely, Matt Herron, Scott Canterbury, Wes Logan,
guys,
Tracy Robinson. We got a lot of jig fans around here.
Absolutely. And all those guys, I can continue to learn a thing or two from them, because they're incredible.
When they talk fishing, I listen intently. So.
Absolutely.
All right.
So with this is just a standard swim jig. This is actually a dirty jig, swim jig. So I'm going all white. I love throwing a white jig. I have a lot of confidence in it. I think a lot of times too right now it imitates a lot of shad as well. But 5/16 is probably where I'll go, or half. 5/16 or half is always good. And I'm gonna throw. I love a Shockwave as a trailer. There's a lot of really good trailers out there, and you can go like a Menace as well that we'll talk about for some other things. And that Yum spine crawl that I talked about as well, I've been throwing that on bladed jigs as well, and you can rig it sideways.
Okay.
And so it'll have more of a paddle action.
Yeah, gotcha.
So I'll rotate. My go-to is gonna be a Missile Shockwave. This one's the 3.5. They also make a 4.25, I believe, is the big one. And if I'm looking for a big bite, I personally switch to that 4.25. So this trailer is my go-to swim jig trailer, and then when we talk about bladed jigs, it's also my bladed jig trailer as well. But I'm gonna rig this one up real quick, try to get it straight for you guys, hurrying. But basically, throwing a swim jig, we're making this really compact, and I want to swim that through the grass. And you can see the unique thing that I'll tell you about a Shockwave and why I like to throw that. If you can see in the camera there, it is a very, very subtle tail. You'll look at a lot of different trailers, and they're really thick throughout the tail when you get to that paddle tail. But believe it or not, when you're throwing this thing, whether you're skipping it or swimming around that bank grass or throwing it through hydrilla or wood or laydowns or docks, whatever the presentation is, if you can slow roll this bait, you can swim it fast. But the really cool thing is when you're utilizing this trailer, you can actually kill this bait. And when this bait goes down, you can already see, just me barely moving it, how that tail's already moving.
Okay.
So that tail gives its own unique action on that Shockwave that it entices a lot of bites, in my opinion.
Okay.
So I'm going to throw this. If I'm on clear water places, I'll put this on like 17-pound fluorocarbon. But most of the time, probably 99% of the time, I'm throwing 30-pound braid. Or if I'm in Florida, a lot of times personally, I'll throw, like 8-strand slick.
Gotcha.
50-pound braid if I'm around those caliber of fish. I feel like
you got some big fish in Florida. That's what I'm told.
And it's fun when they eat a jig.
So, and then following that up, what rod length and action and reel speed, all that kind of good stuff.
So I like a swim jig rod. Fitzgerald Fishing actually came out with a Brian Schmidt swim jig rod, and I feel like that's really good, especially snatching grass and stuff like that. But technique specific like swim jig rods, or like a 7 foot 7.3 medium heavy or heavy, depending on the application. Okay. And then I'm throwing reel speed as well. A lot of times I'm going to go 6/8 to 1. I'm going to go right in the middle. Okay. Just because I feel like that reel has a lot of power, but it's mid range on the speed as well, and I don't have to consciously think if I'm throwing like a 7.5 to 1. I don't have to consciously think about I got to slow it down a little bit if I'm not getting bit. But then line size. If I'm throwing braid, I throw a Palomar, and I'll throw a uni if I'm throwing fluorocarbon. But a lot of times I'm just gonna throw this bait on braid because I feel like that's the better play there. And when you're using that a little bit heavier of a rod, throwing it around grass and stuff like that, you don't have to. You can lay into them a little bit.
Gotcha. Yeah. Let's see. Shane, would you just use the smooth swim jig or the ones with ripples?
Shane, I'm not 100% sure what you're meaning. I think you're talking about the head design. Fire in if I'm incorrect and misinterpreting you. But I personally like the smooth head designs. I have seen someone that you're talking about. And I have seen some manufacturers with like a rippled head design, even on flipping jigs. But personally, I like smooth, and that's because I think when you're throwing around things, me personally, I think it comes through cover a little bit better. That's just my take on it.
All right.
Hope that answers that question, Shane. If not, fire back at us, buddy.
All right. Well, guys, keep the questions coming. We got a couple more things to cover in here, and then we're gonna pick a winner and pack up and let you get back on the road.
Or we can hang out and talk more fishing, because I could do that all day.
Yeah. I think my wife has plans for me this afternoon, so I'm set.
That's good.
But hey, I've been talking fishing all week, and
That's right.
I am very appreciative that we got a bunch of folks that want to hang out and talk fishing with us. So a few folks that are worried about getting in trouble with their boss, though, that we're not responsible for.
That's right.
All right.
So this one's going to be, there's a lot of different flipping jigs out there. This one's going to be a missile flip out jig in a 1/2 ounce. I'm going to go like black blue here. This one, I feel like, muddy water, anything like that. James River, places like that. Florida, we got a lot of tannic water, so we're going to use black and blue a lot of times. And trailers, Missile makes a turbo crawl. That Yum spine crawl again comes really good play here. You can use a black and blue Menace is what I got here. A lot of times I'm using a crawl or paddle tail style. Now when we get into flipping big jigs, like in Florida, we'll flip like an ounce jig and some grass and stuff like that. You can put a beaver on that, a spicy beaver, a Missile D-bomb, that Yum spine crawl again. There's a lot of different applications, and I'd encourage you, when we're talking jig trailers, try a bunch of them. Figure out what you get confidence in, because there is a ton of jig trailers you can carry in your boat.
Especially this year. So.
Absolutely. So this is going to be, like I said, this is a flip out jig, a 1/2 ounce model. This one, I'm going to trim the skirt a little bit. I'm going to cut that skirt back to where it's about even with that hook shank, and then I'm going to put this one, we'd have a Menace trailer on there. But like I said, a lot of different. And then this one, we're flipping this to lay downs. Depending on the water clarity, I might throw braid on this. Okay. But a lot of times I'm going to throw probably 20.
Okay.
Maybe certain situations, if I feel I need fluorocarbon, you can bump to 25. But at that rate, being from Florida, I always go back to straight braid.
Gotcha.
So, but this presentation is more on these, more compact flipping jigs. You're gonna more run fluorocarbon, in my opinion. Okay. But there is the opportunity as well when you start getting those big, flipping jigs like I'm talking about, double weed guard stuff.
Oh yeah.
You're using 65-pound braid.
Yep.
Like we don't fool around with that stuff. Flipping Kissimmee in Florida, or Gunnersville, anything like those places, Tennessee River, where there's a lot of hydrilla. But again, that's line size, rod and reel. A lot of times it's going to be a bigger medium heavy, like a 7.3, or it's going to be a heavy action rod is what I tend to go for with that.
You ever you get up to those 7.6 flipping sticks?
Punch rigs, yes.
Okay.
Sometimes depending on the jig, like I'll go 7.6, 7.8, or 7.10 if we're going big jigs. But
Okay.
a half ounce, again, I'm not a real big guy, so I like to have more maneuverability within the boat and just be able to make more precise pitches.
Okay. All right. Well, it's not. What else we got left?
We got bladed jigs.
Oh.
I think this is my favorite.
Oh, a lot of folks, big chatterbait fans.
Oh yeah. So we're talking about jigs, but we can't get out of the jig category without throwing the bladed.
We talked some about it yesterday. Is it is a wire bait? Is it a jig? Is it whatever it is? It catches some fish. That
that's
seems
right.
to be consistent.
I'd like to hear y'all's thoughts too. Is a chatterbait a jig, or is it more of a blade bait? But when you take these out of the package too, so we're going straight jackhammer. I get a lot of questions a lot of times. Man, you get a $16 chatterbait? I threw $5 or they're $5-7 chatterbaits for a while, and they're good. They do catch fish, but there's something about a jackhammer that I get in trouble with my wife because I have a lot of money in jackhammers. I got a lot of money in jackhammers.
That's
so I mean, the reality is, when you buy two, throw them on good line. Like a lot of times I throw them on 17, believe it or not.
Okay.
Because I'm, again, from Florida, throwing around grass. And that's, gar and crazy mudfish and stuff where I fish them a lot of times. Now, I just got back from Cherokee and I was catching smallmouth on a jackhammer.
Okay.
And I was actually throwing it on 12. Because I was getting a lot more bites that way because smallmouth Clearwater 17 doesn't work out as well.
Gotcha.
So this is Clearwater shad. My favorite is white, and I tend to throw white over anything else. But right now, I will switch it up a little bit. I'll have a lot of them tied on the deck. A lot of times, I'll tie 4 chatterbaits on the deck.
Gotcha.
I'll tie green pumpkin. I'll tie like a Clearwater shad, especially now in the fall with a lot of shad. I'll try white, and then sometimes if the water's dirty, black blue.
Is there? I mean, so any time of the year, you're kind of
any time of the year, I got a chatterbait.
Gotcha.
It's become one of my absolute confidence bait, especially when I decided to start dumping a boatload of money into jackhammers.
Gotcha.
So I have them in the boat at all times. And again, we're going back to the Shockwave trailer again. And a lot of times, Gunnersville, even here, Neely, Henry, Coosa, stuff like that, throwing around that bank grass laydowns and stuff like that, getting those big bites. A lot of times I will go up to that bigger Shockwave.
Okay.
And then you can go, to that Shockwave 3.5. That's a more, compact approach. But if you're looking to that big bite, bump up to the bigger one, that 4.25. And that I think that, sometimes just puts it over the edge for some of those bigger bites.
So let me ask you, as a guy that gets to fish a number of different fisheries, because I know this is a common question. You show up, you're new on a body of water, and you say you're a big fan of chatterbaits, always going to be one of your confidence baits. How do you pick what color? What's your thought process with what color you might want to start with, what size you might want to start with to start trying to find that pattern?
That's a great question, and that's something I'm always trying to dial in as well. Because when you're running on for the opens, we can practice for longer than 2.5 days, but a lot of times I get there with 2.5 days, and you're right, you want to dial it in as quick as possible. Excuse me, but a lot of times for me, I'll carry all sizes of a chatterbait, but I have more 3/8 ounce chatterbaits than I have anything else. 3/8 and a half are really close, but for some reason, me personally, my confidence bait is a 3/8 ounce. Okay. And I just try to let that bait hit the bottom, depending on where I'm fishing. But green pumpkin is a staple, or bruised green pumpkin somewhere there. Green pumpkin, I might put you can go like you can throw in like a Gambler easy swimmer, things like that, in a Copperfield on a a green pumpkin jackhammer as well, and that'll give you some flash for bluegill and things like that. You can go clearwater shad. A lot of these decisions are coming from our forage, though.
Gotcha.
So that's what I'm kind of looking at when I get there. For instance, Cherokee, I had a white one tied on. I had two different sizes, actually, because I was trying to fish it out a little bit deeper and drag it off the rocks. Okay. And then I was throwing it dirt shallow. And, you know, some of those smallmouth will pull up in this deep of water.
Gotcha.
But I'm not going to really throw a half that way because I can get that 3/8 to hover in the water column. You know, if we're only in 2 foot, that 3/8 will hang in that 1 foot range, mid water column, better than that half ounce to me. So I had two of those tied on, and then I also had a green pumpkin. And I didn't catch them all at practice. I caught 2 keepers the first day of the tournament late because I noticed that water got muddy. Okay. So if you can have multiple different options there, and then a lot of times, and I'm still teaching myself this, and you'll see a lot of guys, those Scott Canterburys of the world, so good at fishing the conditions.
Gotcha.
You know, Mark Menendez, he's been a great mentor for me as well, and he's so good at fishing, you know, the conditions, and sometimes you do have a bad practice, but they're very good at just scrapping it and fishing the conditions and just going fishing at the end of the day. So that's where I think multiple different color options allow you to fish conditions. You know, if you don't get a chance to practice for a weekend team derby or a pro-am, something like that, and you just got the tournament, having a white one and a green pumpkin. Another good rule of thumb too is that I like to do is have contrasted colors. So white for like shad, and then something to imitate that next forage like bluegill or just a green pumpkin is a good all-out approach.
All right. Along the same lines, good question, I think. And how much non-grass lake? So where do you fish them on the non-grass lakes? How much non-grass lake do you get the opportunity to fish?
Pretty good amount. Okay. Yeah, on the opens and stuff like. But again, I'll use Cherokee again because I just came from there. But I mean, personally, there's no grass in that place. I wish I could have found some. But I mean, rocks, it comes into play. Laydowns, it comes into play. Believe it or not, it skips very well.
Okay.
So if you have a jackhammer you can look at, you can see the roundedness of the head design. And if you can see that on that skipping jig, you can notice some similarities within that head design. So again, you can throw that skipping under dock. So snatching it out of grass gets a great reaction bite, but covering water, breaking down a new fishery, or in the fall trying to get a bite, or again, just covering water, a blade bait, chatterbait comes into play big time.
Okay. All right, let's jump into some of these questions. I think Shane, more general, what you like best, lead jig or tungsten jigs?
It depends. A lot of times now, I think a lot of things are going to tungsten, so it makes things a lot more compact. But honestly, it just depends on the situation. There are some companies that have started coming out with tungsten swim jigs even, and I believe it just kind of boils down to preference. Me, I bounce back and forth, to be honest, just what jigs fit my style of fishing in each category.
Have you tried the Thunder Cricket much?
Yes, I have. I've actually, I was pretty partial to the jackhammer, but then I got so much confidence in chatterbaits now, bladed jigs, that I've started expanding, and I think there's some great material as well you can find on YouTube and the differences and stuff. Okay. But I think there's a time and place for both the jackhammer and the Thunder Cricket. Okay. And I like them both well. And sometimes, to be honest, if I am focused really hard on a grass bite, I got both of them tied on.
Gotcha. All right. You like blades bent or not bent?
If I assume you're referring to like the blade of the actual chatterbait. I don't do anything out of the package. I keep it straight how it is from the manufacturer. I'm not tweaking anything, but I would, like a blade, that little uptick is pretty much all I personally need.
Okay. All right. And with chatterbait, can you use it for schooling fish?
Absolutely. I definitely recommend having it tied on, especially when you get around schooling fish. Schooling fish can sometimes get extremely frustrating, so make sure that you have one tied on. Have your top water tied on, a little swim bait, and then throw in your blade bait with some sort of swim bait trailer. And honestly, a lot of times this category, the swim jig and the bladed jig, schooling fish, it's a good idea to definitely run through that cycle of baits for that school you're trying to attack.
All right. Mike Godfrey, good morning. Thanks for joining us. Let's see. I think that's we're up on all the questions. We got through all the jigs.
We did.
Now an interesting pivot.
That's right.
Well, what do you got there?
The old spoon.
Spoon.
This is a James Watson Worldwide spoon.
Oh, all right. A little river to sea action.
That's right.
So, guys, first, how many of you spend a lot of time fishing spoons? I'd like to know. Drop us some knowledge on some spoon fishing.
So, this is a spoon we're working with right now. There's a lot of different spoons on the market. Nichols, Ben Parker spoons. You've seen those come into play. Tennessee River, Big Leg, Kentucky Lake, Pickwick, Gunnersville, all those, ledge derbies. A big spoon's always tied on. This one's a little bit more compact. You got a Strike King flutter spoon. And then the thing I want to note is you got those, spoons that you're going to imitate a lot of, shad offshore, stuff like that, big gizzard shad, herring, it can come into play like on Hartwell and stuff. But also War Eagle makes a small jigging spoon. So that's one that I tend to go with. A lot of times you can vertically. So if you guys are getting into using your electronics and dropping straight down on fish, that's one a lot of times that I'll utilize because I'm getting more confidence dropping on them. I have more confidence sometimes dropping a spoon on them. But being from Florida, I'm still working on my deep offshore game.
Yeah.
And so that War Eagle spoon is a really small, compact spoon that gives you a broad range of sizes if you want to put that spoon into your applications, especially offshore and especially in the fall time when we got small bait. So you get into the sizes like the one we got here and like a Strike King flutter spoon. And then, summertime stuff, big gizzard shad, things like that. You got a Ben Parker spoon, Magnum spoon. We're talking 12 inches. Looks like you're throwing a hubcap out there.
All right. We're seeing never fish one. Not a lot, but do it times all the way to love them. Brian, just starting to learn how to fish. You and me both, brother. That's what I enjoy doing these because
and we're all still learning.
I'm getting paid to sit here and learn about fishing, so I'm not complaining. Mike Godfrey says works great above dams when they're pulling water.
And I saw he said a crawl works good on a chatterbait as well. I agree with that. There's definitely applications for that as well. Sometimes you can rig them sideways too. Don't know if you've tried that, but that's a great approach as well. So if you're throwing it like that.
So what are you fishing a spoon on? What rod, reel, line?
That one you toy with a little bit, but a lot of times I'm throwing, if we're throwing real big spoons, it's like 20-pound fluorocarbon.
Okay.
If you're getting that smaller, like jigging spoon, like War Eagle one that I was talking about, we can do like 15 somewhere in there. And you can drop down as well. But the smaller the spoon, the more finesse I'm trying to get with that approach. As I go up, I'm getting bigger rod, bigger line. So if we're offshore, we're throwing 7-6 medium heavy, big stuff, because if you're chunking a hubcap out there, you got to be able to rip it off the bottom, because the way you're going to fish that is that we'll start with a big spoon. If you're going to throw that out there offshore deep, have that school marked, and you're going to throw it into the school, let it hit the bottom, and you're going to snap it off the bottom. And what you're trying to do is you're going to try to get that spoon's going to rise, and then that's why I call it a flutter spoon. It's going to flutter back down. But basically, you're trying to imitate dying shad and stuff like that.
Okay.
I'll tell you a great person to watch for this that you've probably seen on the Bassmaster Elite Series is Chris Aldane. He did it at Gunnersville extremely well. He's very, very good at it.
Okay.
And you watch him. There's content on YouTube I'm sure you can find of him throwing it. But you're going to snatch that bait off the bottom. It flutters back down. But you need a big rod to be able to snatch that bait. But also when they load up to it, you've got to get that hook penetration, and you've got to immediately keep their momentum coming into the boat. And a lot of times it's a straight boat flip with that because you cannot lose momentum because, again, they got a hubcap in their mouth.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So that's where, you'll see on this spoon, you got stinger hooks as well. Owner makes some stinger hooks that you can put on those big Ben Parker spoons and things like that. But then as we go down, this one I'd probably throw on like a 7.3 medium heavy because that's more like that Strike King flutter spoon that we're imitate, more standard size shad. And then as we get smaller with that War Eagle spoon, I'm going to use a more probably like a 7. I'm probably still going to be at 7 to 7.3 foot range. And a lot of times I'm still going to be a softer medium heavy so I can drop straight down on it and still get good action off the bottom. But that spoon's only going to be about a half ounce. So it's not going to be as much as your 3 ounce Ben Parker.
All right. Well, it looks like we are about to the end, and I think we've been going plenty long. We've covered a lot of territory on jigs and chatterbaits, spoons. So, Hunter, I appreciate you stopping in and being willing to do this. Or I guess you were already going to stop in, I should
Absolutely.
say. Yeah, like I said, when we started, you never know what you're going to get when you show up here. And it's always great to hear from some different folks. Dano and I love doing this, but we certainly love having the pros come in here and having guys that are out there fishing a lot of the opens and the elites and all that kind of good stuff. So
absolutely, man. And I appreciate you guys having me. And if anybody thinks of any more questions after this, feel free to reach back out to Bucks or even me at Hunter Bland Fishing on Facebook or Instagram. Shoot me a DM message. I'd love to even send you pictures or anything like that if you guys want to continue this discussion as you start trying them and building confidence in this wide variety of jigs we talked about and even spoons. So don't be a stranger. If you guys need any more information on that, feel free to reach out at any time.
All right. Well, I guess the only thing we got left to do is to pick a couple of winners. So what I've been doing with these, what's your personal best largemouth?
Over a 9-pounder. It was like a 9.3, I believe.
9.3?
9.1, 9.3.
Okay. All right. Well, so we're going to round that to 9. And I'm going to scroll through here, and you tell me when to stop, and then we're going to count up or down, and that'll be our first winner. We're going to do that with the 5 free tickets. So you tell me when to stop scrolling.
How long can I wait?
Hey,
stop.
All right. Let's go up 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You gotta be kidding me. Shane winning again. This is, I think, your third one.
He's
winning
engaged.
Some tickets. Yeah. So Shane just bought a Avid new 20-foot bass boat. So Shane, you're getting 5 more tickets thrown in. So I expect you're going to win a couple of things on Monday. All right. For all this jig stuff, how about this? Pick a number 1 through. Let's do 1 through 7. You pick a number 1 through 7. Whatever you want to pick.
You want me to say it out loud?
Yes.
2.
All right. So we're going to do the same thing, and you tell me when to stop, and we'll go 2 down.
Stop.
All right. 1, 2. Brian, you are our winner. If you're still on with me, then message. You can just message us here on Facebook. It's probably the easiest thing. We'll get your information and figure out how to get. So all this stuff we've been talking about, we'll throw in the mail and get it to you, or you can stop in and pick it up. But message me. If you're not still live with us, then I'll track you down on Facebook. Man. All right. Well, I think it's about time to head to the house. And where's the next stop for you?
I'm pretty much done for the year on this one. Yeah,
all right.
Gonna do some fun fishing around the house, but I'm switching to deer mode. And
got a new Skeeter ordered already?
Yeah.
All right. Same colors, or
I'll switch it up a little bit. More black Galaxy this time. Black with some silver flake into it.
So. Well, guys, thanks so much. Thank you again.
Absolutely. Glad I could be here.
It's fun to do these. Thanks for everybody. So this is our last live for Virtual Fish Fest. I appreciate all you guys hanging in with us, and for those of y'all that are watching this after the fact, it's been a lot of fun. So we'll definitely trying to make plans for more stuff in the future. But guys, go check out. You can check out his boat probably sometime next week. Whenever you're watching this, your boat will be on our website. Or hey, if you can buy it before I get it on the website, it saves me work, and I love that. So that's actually happening quite often these days. So, all right, guys, y'all have a wonderful Saturday. Have a great rest of your weekend. Happy Halloween. Be safe out there. And we're going to have you back and maybe do some safety discussion.
Absolutely.
That'd be fun.
Absolutely.
Guys, thank y'all so much. We're going to sign off and get out of here. All right.